Hi guys, Banchin here. Welcome to part 3. This is the Crypt of Noctyra. This is a long one. Brace yourself for something special. Thank you. Take it away. River.
The Crypt of Noctyra. Outskirts of the grove. I walk deeper into the corridor, mushrooms glowing like fires from above. I am greeted by a hooded figure. Were they human, beast, or the undead? I am a humble bard, keeper of stories old and new. Whether you travelled far or just returned from today's toils, sit with me a while. This night is kind, and every good day deserves a better generated tale to close it. Maybe I can tell stories here. One of them approaches me and mentions, "Welcome to the Great Hall, under the teachings of Noctyra. We believe that all souls are beautiful, regardless of where you come from." At last, grinning at the unfamiliar faces, here is where the shadows of the fire dance to the rhythm of the old adventures. Stay, friends. Tonight's story waits for no one. With Noctyra truth upon us, let these words carry us where the past still sings. Another dice competition. The great hall buzzed with energy, its usual solemn air replaced by laughter and the clatter of mugs on the long wooden table. Hooded figures leaned over crudely sketched contender board, jabbing fingers at matchups. The workers, adventurers, and warriors of the crypt gathered for their game and ritual, the D100 competition. At the head of the table stood the guardian of the crypt, a towering figure draped in ceremonial robes. They tapped as a staff. They tapped. They tapped a staff against the stone floor, commanding attention. "Quiet, everyone!" the guardian boomed. "Another dice competition is upon us. Let Noctyra's will guide your rolls, or expose your terrible luck." The room erupted in cheers and exaggerated groans. One contender, eyes heavy with exhaustion, "Maybe the goddess will give me a pity blessing," they quipped, drawing chuckles. Another replied, "Only the most loyal Noctyrians belong here." "To suckle on the teeth of Mother Noctyra is an honor," came the retort, laughter and mock applause. The first round began. Dice tumbled across the table. Gasps and groans followed as the rolls came to a stop. The lowest roller was ceremoniously eliminated, slumping back with exaggerated despair. The room roared with laughter as the contest continued. Eliminations piled up, and a few members, their exhaustion finally winning, began dozing off at the edges of the hall. In the final match, the last two contenders faced each other across the table. The hall grew quiet as they each picked up their die. One kissed their die for luck. "Here's to glory, or better scrounge up some more." Their opponent rolled first. 85. Reactions of approval swept through the crowd. The second die hit the table with a loud thud, spinning widely before settling on 29. The Guardian smirked, raising their staff. "Paid." The great hall rang with laughter as the night carried on, a reminder that even the depths of the crypt, humour and camaraderie, thrived under Noctyra's watchful eye. Noctyra's sword. The forging chamber was alive with energy, a swirling convergence of shadow and light. The air crackled with the power of the ancient ceremony as the image sorcerers, clad in shimmering robes that seemed to shift with unseen images, began their work. Their chants echoed off the walls, words imbued with the weight of countless visions, each syllable weaving strands of ethereal essence into the artifact before them. At the centre of the chamber, the guardian of the crypt stood solemnly, holding the soul ring aloft. Its glow pulsed with 1,000 stories, the untradeable law of Noctyra herself. Every flicker of light within the ring spoke of balance, transformation, and the eternal cycle of life and death. The visionaries seated in the crescent around the ceremony closed their eyes and reached out with their minds. They channeled their collective insights, pulling from the infinite realms of Noctyra's influence. Their visions merged with the sorcery, creating an intricate web of knowledge and power. "The time is now," the Guardian intoned. their voice reverberating with authority. Let the soul ring find its purpose. Let Noctira's will take form. The scythe, Noctira's sacred weapon, lay on the pedestal of bone and obsidian at the chamber's heart. Its blade, forged in a previous age, had long been revered, but now it would ascend to a new purpose. As the chants reached a crescendo, the image sorceress gestured towards the ring. With a blinding burst of light, the ring dissolved, its essence drawn into a scythe. The chamber seemed to hold its breath. Shadows danced widely across the walls, and the scythe began to glow with a soft yet commanding light. Runes, ancient and indecipherable to all but Noctira herself, etched themselves into the blade, pulsating with power. "It is done," whispered the guardian. Well, that's supposed to be whisper. Stepping forward to grasp the weapon, the scythe seemed alive, humming faintly in their hands. Turning to the visionaries and sorcerers, the guardian raised it high. "Noctira's will is forged anew. This is not merely a weapon, but a testament to her balance and eternal legacy." A wave of exhilaration swept through the chamber. The visionaries opened their eyes, a shared sense of awe passing between them. The image sorcerers lowered their hands, their work complete, their faces lit with reverence. In that moment, all present understood Adamat's approval. Noctira's scythe was now more than a tool of death. It was a beacon of her law, carrying the unshakable truth that all souls, in death, would find new life. Called the quest. The new recruit stood into the centre of the coop, dagger drawn, ready to prove himself. What should have been a simple task, wrangling chickens for the morning stew, had taken a wild turn. The flock surrounded him, feathers fluffed in fury, beaded eyes glowing with unnatural rage. Their sharp beaks clicked menacingly, and their wings flapped like banners of war. "How bad could this be?" he muttered, adjusting his grip on the dagger. The answer came swiftly. A hen launched herself into the air, talons outstretched. He dodged, but the rooster rammed his shin with the force of a battering ram. Stumbling, he swiped wildly as another chicken dive-bombed his shoulder. They were relentless. Clucking with battle cries, the chickens swarmed him from all sides. One scratched at his boot, another flapped into his face. Feathers exploded around him as he twisted, kicking and slashing in desperation. The sun peeked over the horizon, casting light on this bizarre duel. Minutes dragged like hours, but the warrior held his ground. One by one, the chickens fell stunned, subdued, or tossed aside. He stood panting, in a sea of feathers and disgruntled poultry, dagger still clutched in his hand. A few members watching from the gate gave slow, respectful nods. "You've earned it," one said with a smirk. "From now on, you're chicken tender." The warrior sheathed his dagger, grinned, wiping sweat and feathers from his face. "Told you, no bird's gonna best me." It wasn't the glory he'd imagined. Respect came in all forms, even if it involved poultry. Every quest starts somewhere adventurous. Noctira, the 1%. The bard leaned against a pillar of bone, humming a melancholy tune. My thoughts drifted to the absurd nickname given to a warrior from the Brotherhood. Chicken tender. It had started as a joke, something about a meal I mentioned once, but now it clung to me like a bad song lyric. I, a bard, had come to the crypt as a visitor, a wanderer seeking stories and songs. Yet somewhere along the way, the heavy truth of the place had ensnared me. I find myself glanced down the darkened hall, where wakers toiled under the watchful eyes of the guardians, stacking ornate caskets brimming with treasure. Their faces were hollow, their movements mechanical, as if the grind had stolen their very essence. These offerings were for her, Noctira, the goddess of death and renewal. Drawn by another otherworldly hum, "The bard, my new name, I will tell a story of him." He followed the sound to the great hall. There, in the flickering glow of the crypt's bioluminescent fungi, stood Noctira herself. She was a vision of terrible beauty, her presence commanding and serene. She cradled the newly forged scythe in her hands, its blade gleaming with power that yet that seemed to cut through the very soul of reality. The runes etched into its surface pulsed, alive with energy. Whispers filled the room as the guardians knelt before her, their heads bowed in reverence. "It is done," one of them murmured, their voice trembling. "The scythe can end the undying. No god or immortal is safe." Noctira's lips curled into a gleeful smile. Her fingers traced the weapon's deadly edge. She looked not at her guardians, but directly at the bard. Her gaze pierced him, freezing his breath in his chest. "You," she said, her voice like echo of 1,000 whispers. "I have seen the truth. You say your stories, but you know you cannot escape what you now know. The crypt is no longer a place you visit. It is your home." The bard stumbled back, the weight of her words crashing over him. He had suspected it, of course. The eerie sense of belonging, the slow erosion of his will to leave. But now it was spoken. Undeniable. Behind him, the workers continued their toil, their eyes glazed over, their bodies moving as though driven by an unseen force. The bard realized with horror that he was not a visitor, not even a free soul. He was becoming one of them, bound to the crypt, a servant to Noctira's truth. As Noctira turned her attention back to the scythe, her laughter echoed through the hall. It was a sound both haunting and melodic, a chilling reminder that the crypt of Noctira claimed all who entered, binding them forever to an eternal cycle of death and renewal. The farm. The newest adventurers stood at the edge of the farm, a sprawling expanse that stretched farther than their eyes could follow. Noctira, standing tall and serene, waved them forward with a faint smile. "This will be your training ground," she said, her voice echoing with an unsettling calm. "Sharpen your skills, gather your strength, and return with what you can." At first glance, the farm seemed unremarkable. Chickens clucked in dusty coops, crows perched on sagging fences, and rats scurried across the feed bins. Sheep, goats, pigs, and oxen dotted the fields, their number so vast it was dizzying. "Every adventurer starts here," one whispered, clutching a flimsy weapon dubbed the chicken knife. It was little more than a sharpened piece of bone, but it supposedly increased their odds of success. They moved cautiously into the fields, their first task as simple as they'd been promised, dispatching a few chickens to gain experience and supplies. The animals didn't resist, which somehow made the task feel more unnerving. As they ventured deeper, they noticed the rats, hundreds of them, swarming around the feed bins and gnawing at the wooden posts. "Why are they so many?" one adventurer murmured, kicking at the ground to scatter a few. The rats darted off but reappeared moments later, their red eyes gleaming. "Maybe they're here for feed," another offered, though their voice wavered. The sheer volume of rats defied logic, and the adventurers' unease grew as they began to count, not just the rats, but all the animals. Thousands of chickens, tens of thousands of sheep, goats, pigs, oxen, all in endless rows. The air grew thick with the stench of sweat and blood, and the adventurers realized the sounds around them weren't just the noises of a farm. They were the cries of animals being slaughtered. One adventurer stumbled upon a pit, a dark and cavernous hole, lined with bones and rotting carcasses. Above it the crows circled, their cries sharp and menacing. This isn't a farm," they whispered, their voice crackling. "This is a slaughterhouse." As the adventurers turned to leave, Noctira's voice echoed in their minds. "Why so hesitant?" she cooed. "There is strength in taking life, in understanding its weight. The farm is merely the beginning. Harvest what you can, for one day you may find yourselves on the other side of the blade." The adventurers shared a glance, their horror mirrored in each other's eyes. But what choice did they have? Gripping their chicken knives, they pushed forward, their steps heavy with the knowledge of what the farm truly was. The abandoned village. The adventurers approached the village with unease. Noctira's voice whispered through the air like a cold wind. They sacrificed to the wrong person. What they saw confirmed her words. The village was in chaos. Young goblins scrambled through broken homes, carrying stolen trinkets, while Grumps muttered curses and scavenged the wreckage. Goblin guards patrolled the streets with jagged weapons, their faces hardened and weary. At the centre of it all stood the goblin chief, his cleaver glowing faintly red. Around him, houses bore banners stained crimson, sigils smeared like blood. "This is no raid," an adventurer murmured, tightening the grip on their weapon. A deep chill settled over the village. From the shadows emerged the red ghoul, a towering figure of swirling mist and claws, its hollow gaze locking on to the adventurers. A guttural roar rattled the stones beneath their feet. The goblins cowered, chanting frantically, "For the gin! The gin will save us!" "There's slaves to it," one adventurer realized. "We need to stop the gin to break its hold." While Noctira's truth guided them, the adventurers split up. The red ghoul charged, its claws slicing through air and earth, forcing the warriors to dodge and weave. Every strike only scattered the creature's mist, its form rebuilding with unnatural speed. Meanwhile, others turned to the village hall. "Find the gin! Destroy the banners on the way!" one shouted. The goblin chief howled, clutching his cleaver as its power wavered. "No! The gin must have its sacrifice!" The red ghoul shrieked, its misty form twisted and shrinking. The final blow came as the last sigil was destroyed. The gin hold shattered, the red ghoul dissolving into nothing, its roar faded into silence. Then adventurers ascended the village hall, facing the gin, a monstrous entity of shadow and flame. Dark tendrils lashed out as the group discovered red sigils feeding its power. While one destroyed the banner marks, the gin stood still. A warrior struck its core with Noctira's truth, his blade, shattering the gin into mist and breaking its hold. The gin let out a final deafening cry as its form exploded into the burst of dark blue mist and fading light. The corridor fell silent, save the laboured breaths of the adventurers. The goblin chief dropped his cleaver, staring at the adventurers in disbelief before fleeing with his guards. The remaining goblins, Grumps and young alike, looked around as if awakening from a dark dream. Without a word, they scattered, disappearing into the woods beyond the village. As the adventurers stood among the wreckage, Noctira's voice returned, softer now. "Their chains are broken, but the scars remain. You have done well." The village lay silent, free yet empty, a place marked by what had been and what was now undone. Caves. The adventurers ventured past the abandoned village, drawn to an ominous cave. Shadows danced along the jagged walls, whispering despair. Noctira's voice echoed faintly. "Face the darkness or be consumed." Inside, grey wolves lurked, their eyes gleaming with hunger. They attacked in packs, fangs flashing. One adventurer swung their blade, slicing through fur, but another was dragged down, teeth sinking into armor. Spells burst like lightning, scorching the wolves, and with coordinated strikes, they drove the beasts back. Yet, the path twisted, looping back on itself, leaving them lost. They pressed on, entering a cavern where a cyclops waited, its single eye blazing red. It roared, swinging a massive club that shattered stone, sending shards flying. The group scattered, narrowly avoiding death. The warrior struck at its legs, dodging another swing that cracked the ground. Arrows pierced its eye, blinding it with a howl of pain. Taking advantage, they hacked at the limbs until it collapsed, shaking the cave. Yet, the passage spiraled deeper, pulling them further from the light. Cave demons waited them next, hunched and snarling with glowing eyes. They moved unnaturally fast, claws raking through armor. A mage unleashed fire, engulfing the creatures, but they shrieked and lunged through the flames. A shield bearer blocked the assault, buying time for a counterattack. Swords flashed and demons fell, dissolving into shadows. Yet, the walls seemed to close in. The way out is vanishing. A wall pierced the darkness. A banshee hovered above, its face twisted in sorrow. Its scream rattled their minds, freezing them in place. Their fears manifested, shadows clawing at their sanity. Guided by Noctira's truth, a cleric chanted, forming a protective aura that shattered the illusions. The warrior leaped, striking at the banshee's heart with a holy blade, silencing its torment. Still, the cave's corridor coiled, refusing to release them. The cave beast emerged next. Camouflaged against the rock, it lashed out with jagged claws, gouging stone and flesh alike. A rogue rolled under its swipe, stabbing at its exposed belly. It howled, blending back into the walls, invisible once more. They closed their eyes, listening to its breathing. When it lunged, they struck as one, piercing its heart, watching as it crumbled to dust. They barely had time to breathe before stumbling into the giant cave spider's lair, its webs thick as rope, choking the passageways. Poisonous fangs dripped venom as it scuttled down from the ceiling. The mage unleashed fire, burning the webs, and the spider screeched, recoiling. The archer fired, pinning its legs while the warrior charged, severing its head in one blow. Yet, the darkness swallowed their victory, the cave twisting reality. The adventurers grew wary, despairing, creeping in. Each battle drained them, yet they were no closer to escape. The cave's corridors coiled, illusions distorting their senses. Was there ever an exit, or were they doomed to wander the shadows forever? Noctira's whisper echoed again. Only the faithful find the light. But in the suffocating dark, even faith began to fade.
And how about that? Isn't that crazy stuff? Love the lore of Noctira, actually. Very well put together. A bit long for my liking, but I'm very impatient, but beautifully done. So thank you very much, River. Okay, and now part 4 will be the next one, and that's going to be The Wild Hearts of Auriel.